A brief history of computers has three parts. A. The age of mechanical calculation. B. The age of mechanical calculators. And C. The age of electronic computers. First, the last age of electronic computers has five generations. First generation between 1942 and 1955, second generation 1955 and 1964, third generation between 1964 and 1971, fourth generation between 1971 and 1980, and fifth generation starts from 1981 and is ongoing. In the age of mechanical calculation, there are two important things. One is the abacus and the second is the cardboard calculator. The ancient Egyptians and Chinese people used the abacus to add and subtract numbers. John Napier, a Scottish mathematician, used the cardboard calculator in the 17th century. He was born in 1550 and he died in 1670. Then starts the age of mechanical calculators, and it includes Pascaline, Leibniz calculator, Jacob's loom, arithmometer, difference engine, analytical engine, first program, tabulating machine, Bell relay computer, Howard Mark I, and first debugging. Blaise Pascal, a French mathematician, invented the Pascal's calculator in 1642. Pascal was born in 1623 and he died in 1662. His calculator is also called Pascaline. Baron Leibniz, a German baron, invented the Leibniz calculator in 1672 to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Baron Leibniz was born in 1646 and he died in 1716. Joseph M. Jacquard, a Frenchman, invented the Jacquard's loom with cards to program patterns in cloth in 19th century. He was born in 1752 and he died in 1834. Charles Xavier Thomas, a French inventor, invented the arithmometer to add, subtract, multiply, and divide in 1822. He was born in 1785 and he died in 1870. Charles Babbage, an English professor, invented the difference engine in 1822. He was born in 1791 and died in 1871. Charles Babbage, who is also known as the father of computers, invented the analytical engine in 1842. Lady Ada Lovelace worked under Charles Babbage and wrote the first computer program for the analytical engine. She was born in 1815 and she died in 1852. She is a daughter of Lord Byron, the famous poet. Herman Hollerith, an American inventor, built the tabulating machine for census in 1890. He was born in 1860 and he died in 1929. George Stibitz, an American researcher, built the Bell relay computer in 1941. Stibitz was born in 1904 and died in 1995. Konrad Zuse, a German scientist, built the G3 computer in 1941. Juice was born in 1910 and he died in 1995. Howard H. Aiken, an American physicist, built the Harvard Mark I in 1944. Aiken was born in 1900 and died in 1973. Grace Hopper, a US Navy admiral and computer scientist, wrote the first program of debugging. Admiral Hopper was born in 1906 and died in 1992. Now, the age of electronic computers starts with the first generation between 1942 and 1995. The first generation of computers had the following features. Their duration: first generation computers were between 1942 and 1955, and the main technology used to build these computers was electronic valve or vacuum tube, and for input and output, punch cards, paper tape, magnetic tapes were used, and for secondary storage also punch cards, paper tape, magnetic drum, magnetic disks, etc. were used. And the programming language for these computers was machine code, and the computers were very slow, very heavy, and large, expensive, and very unreliable. They were used for record keeping in organizations and not for individuals or for the masses. Examples of the first generation computers are ENIAC, EDVAC, EDSAC, and IBM 650. The people who were involved in first generation computers were John Fleming, Lee De Forest, John Moseley, Maurice Wilks, John von Neumann, etc. John Fleming, a British engineer, built the first electronic valve or diode in 1904. Fleming was born in 1849 and he died in 1945. And with the diode, the first generation of computers started. Lee De Forest, an American inventor, built the first electronic valve or triode in 1907. Lee De Forest was born in 1873 and he died in 1961. John V. Atanasoff and Clifford Berry, two American scientists, built the Atanasoff-Berry computer (ABC) using valves in 1942. Atanasoff was born in 1903 and he died in 1995, while Clifford Berry was born in 1918 and died in 1963. J. Prosper Eckert and John Moseley, two American physicists, built the ENIAC with 18,000 vacuum tubes in 1946. Eckert was born in 1919 and he died in 1995, while John Moseley was born in 1907 and died in 1980. Maurice Wilks, a British scientist, designed the EDSAC, which was completed in 1949. Maurice Wilks was born in 1913 and he died in 2010. Neumann, Moseley, and Eckert built the EDVAC with 4,000 vacuum tubes in 1951. Neumann was born in 1903 and he died in 1957. With this, the first generation of computers end and the second generation starts, which was between 1955 and 1964. And the technology is transistors, which replaced the vacuum tubes of the first generation. Okay, the input and output was with the help of paper tape, magnetic tape, visual display unit, and the secondary storage was also on paper tape, magnetic drum, and magnetic disks. The programming language used during this second generation for the second generation computers was assembly language as well as high level languages like Fortran, COBOL, etc. Their features were also heavy, large, expensive, but faster and more reliable than first generation computers. They were also used in record keeping in organizations and not available for individuals. Some examples of first generation computers are IBM 1401, IBM 7090, IBM 1620, IBM 7094, IBM 700 series, CDC 1604, CDC 3600, UNIVAC 1108. People involved in building or creating the second generation computers were William Shockley, John Bardeen, Walter Brattain, Tom Kilburn, Ted Cook Yarbrough, Seymour Cray, etc. American physicists William Shockley, John Bardeen, and Walter Brattain invented the transistor in 1947, which became the main technology of computers in the second generation. Instead of using uh, vacuum tubes, Tom Kilburn and his team invented the first computer with both transistors and vacuum tubes in the late 1940s. Kilburn was born in 1921 and he died in 2001. Ted, Ted Cook Yarbrough and his team invented the first transistor computer in 1955. Yarbrough was born in 1918 and died in 2013. IBM Corporation brought out its transistor computer IBM 1401 for small businesses in 1959. Seymour Cray designed the transistor computer CDC 1604 in 1960. Cray was born in 1925 and he died in 1996. Sperry Rand Corporation brought its first transistor computer UNIVAC 1107 in 1962 and the second UNIVAC 1108 in 1965. With this, the second generation of computers ends and the third generation starts from 1964. And the technology now, the technology of transistors of second generation was replaced by IC chip with small scale integration and medium scale integration technology. IC, the full form of IC is integrated circuit. The typewriter terminal, the visual display unit, the optical character reader were the input and output devices for these computers. And for secondary storage, magnetic disk, extended core storage, mass storage devices, etc. were used. The programming languages for this generation were high-level languages like Fortran 2, 3, and 4, COBOL, BASIC, ALGOL 68, Pascal 1, etc. And these computers were, unlike previous computers, produced in large quantity for the masses, and they were used in airlines, marketing, and credit card transactions. Some examples of the third generation computers are STS-92, IBM 360/370 series, ICL 1900 series, PDP-11, RCA Spectra 70, etc. And the people involved in building these were Jack Colby and Robert Noyce. Jack Colby first built the first hybrid integrated circuit IC in 1958, and this started the third generation of computers. Jack Colby was born in 1923 and died in 2005. Robert Noyce built the first monolithic integrated circuit IC in 1959. He was born in 1927 and died in 1990. STS, an American company, developed STS-92, the first computer with IC chips in 1965. IBM, another American company, developed IBM S/360 computers in 1965. Radio Corporation of America (RCA) developed RCA Spectra 70 computers in 1965. Digital Equipment Corporation (DEC), an American company, developed BDP-11, a computer with IC chips, in 1970. The IBM, an American company, developed IBM S/370 computers in 1970. With this, the third generation computers end and the fourth generation of computers start in 1971, and the technology used during this fourth generation is microprocessor or very large scale integration circuit chips. The keyboard, visual display unit and mouse became the input devices and output devices, and the languages for programming were high level languages like C, C++, C++, DBase, etc. And these computers were produced in large numbers for the masses and were used in for the computers could be used for networking with one another, paving the way for internet. Some examples of the fourth generation computers are Star 1000, Cray XMP supercomputer, DEC 10, PDP 11, Cray 1, etc. The people involved in this were Jack Colby, Robert Noyes, Seymour Cray, Federico Fagin, Ted Hoff, Masatoshi Shima, and Stanley Major. Federico Fagin, Ted Hoff, Masatoshi Shima, and Stanley Major, from left to right in the picture below, invented the first real microprocessor, Intel 4004, in 1971, which started the fourth generation computers. Seymour Cray designed supercomputer Cray 1 in 1976 and sold nearly 100 pieces at $5 to $8.8 million a piece. Cray was born in 1925 and he died in 1996. Digital Equipment Corporation (DEC) designed VAX in 1977. Hewlett and Packard Company brought the workstation and server computer HP 9000 in 1984. IBM Corporation brought its supercomputer IBM 3090 in 1985. With this, the age of fourth generation computer ends and the fifth generation starts in 1981, which is still going on. And the technology still advanced, employs parallel microprocessors with ultra very large scale integrated circuits, chips and biochips for speed. The main features of the fifth generation computer is knowledge based processing system, development of natural language processing, advancement in supercomputer technology, artificial intelligence (AI) to think and behave like humans. And some of the equipment, some of the devices of the fifth generation are laptops, tablets, smartphones, surveillance cameras, uh, social robots like Sophia, and embedded computers, as in self-driving cars like Tesla. Okay, that's the end of the brief history of computers. Thank you for watching.